The first police siren shattered the wedding music just seconds before the bride and groom were about to say, "I do." Every smile disappeared. Children stopped laughing. Guests slowly turned toward the flashing blue and red lights racing across the quiet countryside venue. The bride's bouquet trembled in her hands. The groom remained perfectly still, his calm eyes fixed on the officers stepping out of their patrol cars. Across the lawn, a furious neighbor folded his arms with a satisfied grin. He had made the call himself. He had told dispatch that a suspicious gathering was taking place, that strangers were trespassing, causing trouble. And that something didn't feel right. He never imagined the man standing at the altar wasn't just another black groom. He was the city's newly appointed police chief. And within the next 15 minutes, every person at that wedding would witness a lesson about dignity, prejudice, and grace that none of them would ever forget. Before we begin, if you believe kindness is stronger than hate, and that everyone deserves respect no matter their race or background, please take a moment to like this video. Subscribe to the channel, share this story with someone who believes in second chances, and leave a comment telling us where you're watching from. Your support helps stories like this reach people who need them most. The June afternoon had begun like a dream. Golden sunlight stretched across rolling green fields just outside the city. White roses framed the outdoor aisle, while soft violin music floated through the warm breeze. Every chair was filled with family members who had traveled from different states to celebrate one of the happiest days of two remarkable people. Marcus Williams had spent 39 years earning respect the hard way. Growing up in one of the toughest neighborhoods in the city, he learned early that life would never hand him anything simply because he deserved it. His mother worked double shifts as a nurse's aide while his father, once a respected firefighter, struggled after an injury forced him into early retirement. Money was scarce. Hope often felt scarce too, yet Marcus carried something no hardship could steal: character. He studied when others gave up. He stayed out of trouble while friends drifted toward gangs. He earned scholarships, graduated near the top of his criminal justice class, joined the police academy, and quietly built a reputation unlike anyone else. He believed policing wasn't about power. It was about service. Every promotion came because he earned it. Patrol officer became detective. Detective became lieutenant. Lieutenant became deputy chief. Finally, after nearly 2 decades of spotless service, the mayor announced Marcus Williams as the city's first black police chief. Many celebrated. Some remained silent. Others weren't happy at all. Marcus knew promotions often revealed people who had been hiding their prejudice behind polite smiles. Still, he refused to let bitterness shape his heart. He simply kept working. Then came Emily. Emily Carter wasn't impressed by titles or uniforms. She first met Marcus during a community reading program where both volunteered every Saturday morning. She noticed how every child smiled when Marcus entered the room. He remembered every name. He remembered birthdays. He asked about homework. He treated every child as though they mattered. That was the moment Emily realized greatness had very little to do with rank. Over the next 3 years, friendship slowly became love. Neither family cared about race. They cared about kindness. Their wedding reflected exactly that. Black relatives, white relatives, Latino neighbors, Asian coworkers, retired officers, church members, teachers, firefighters, nurses, and children from Marcus's youth mentorship program, all gathered under the same white canopy. It looked exactly like the community Marcus had spent his life trying to build. Everyone belonged, except one man watching from across the fence believed otherwise. Harold Benson had lived beside the vineyard for nearly 25 years. He considered himself the unofficial guardian of the neighborhood. He complained about everything. Birthday parties were too loud, children laughed too much, garden lights were too bright. Wedding music disturbed the peace. But something about today's ceremony bothered him far more than the music. As more guests arrived, Harold watched through his kitchen window: luxury cars. Families dressed beautifully, people hugging, children running across the grass. Then he noticed the bride kissing a black man before photographs. His expression hardened. He convinced himself the event seemed suspicious. He ignored the professionally printed signs, ignored the rented venue, ignored the licensed catering trucks, ignored every obvious fact. Instead, he picked up his phone. When dispatch answered, Harold spoke with complete confidence. He claimed unfamiliar people had invaded private property. He exaggerated the number of vehicles. He hinted that violence might break out. He insisted officers should respond immediately. By the time the wedding ceremony officially began, 3 patrol units had already been dispatched. Back beneath the floral arch, the minister smiled warmly. Marcus reached for Emily's hands. Family members wiped away tears. The flower girl whispered something that made everyone laugh softly. Then came the sirens. Every head turned. 3 police cruisers rolled slowly across the gravel entrance. The violin music stopped. The officers stepped out professionally, scanning the crowd. Guests exchanged nervous glances. Emily squeezed Marcus's hand, not because she feared him, because she feared what assumptions strangers might make before asking a single question. Marcus quietly smiled. His years in law enforcement had taught him something valuable. Confusion grows louder when people panic. Calm spreads faster than fear. Without rushing, he kissed Emily's hand and walked toward the approaching officers. The youngest officer recognized him first. His eyes widened. He immediately stood straighter. The second officer looked twice before whispering something to his partner. Within seconds, every officer realized exactly who stood before them. Their new police chief, not in uniform. Not behind a podium, standing in a cream-colored wedding suit, the senior patrol officer removed his cap respectfully. His face turned pale with embarrassment. Dispatch had informed them about a suspicious disturbance. Instead, they had interrupted their chief's wedding. Marcus smiled gently before anyone could apologize. He shook each officer's hand. His calmness surprised everyone. Rather than expressing anger, he simply asked if someone had reported an emergency. The officers explained the complaint exactly as it had been received. Marcus nodded. He understood immediately. Years of experience told him this wasn't really about noise. Someone had looked at the crowd and decided they didn't belong. Across the property, Harold watched confidently, expecting arrests. Instead, he saw something impossible. Every officer suddenly appeared uncomfortable. One even looked ready to leave immediately. Confused, Harold marched toward the gathering. His voice carried across the lawn before anyone noticed him approaching. He announced loudly that these people had no business disturbing the neighborhood. Several guests froze. Older family members exchanged painful looks. Some had experienced moments exactly like this decades earlier. Moments when they were judged before speaking, before introducing themselves, before simply existing. Marcus slowly turned. His expression never changed. No anger, no shouting, only quiet disappointment. Harold continued speaking, unaware of who Marcus actually was. He insisted police should remove everyone immediately. He pointed toward guests eating cake, toward children playing, toward grandparents sitting peacefully beneath shaded trees. The silence became overwhelming. Finally, one patrol officer stepped forward. With complete professionalism, he addressed Harold respectfully. He explained that the event was fully permitted. The venue had every required license. No laws had been broken. Harold refused to accept the answer. He demanded someone be arrested. His finger pointed directly toward Marcus. Then came the sentence no one expected. The senior officer calmly replied that the gentleman Harold wanted arrested happened to be Chief Marcus Williams. Time seemed to stop. Harold blinked repeatedly. His mouth opened slightly. The confidence drained from his face. He looked at Marcus, then at the officers standing respectfully beside him, then back toward hundreds of wedding guests silently watching. Embarrassment spread across his face faster than anyone thought possible. He searched desperately for words that never came. Marcus could have humiliated him. He could have demanded charges for filing a false report. He could have turned the entire moment into public revenge. Instead, he remembered something his father had once told him. The strongest people don't prove strength by crushing others. They prove it by refusing to become what hurt them. Marcus thanked the responding officers for taking every emergency call seriously. He reminded the guests that officers never choose the information dispatch receives. They simply respond to protect the community. The officers visibly relaxed. Many guests applauded. Not because someone had won, because someone had chosen wisdom over pride. The ceremony resumed. Music returned. Laughter slowly followed. Yet Harold remained standing near the entrance, completely alone. For the first time in years, he saw himself through everyone else's eyes, not as a protector, not as a concerned citizen, but as a man whose assumptions had nearly ruined another family's happiest day. The realization hurt more than any public argument ever could. As dinner began later that evening, Marcus noticed Harold quietly walking away toward his house. Without telling anyone, Marcus excused himself from the reception. Emily watched him go. She already knew where he was headed, because that was exactly the man she had married. Marcus crossed the grass until Harold reached his front porch. The older man looked exhausted. His shoulders no longer carried anger, only shame. For several moments, neither man spoke. The silence itself carried years of misunderstanding. Finally, Harold admitted something he had never confessed aloud. He said he had spent most of his life believing stories people told him instead of getting to know the people living beside him. Fear had slowly disguised itself as certainty. He realized he had judged an entire celebration without knowing a single guest. Marcus listened carefully. He didn't interrupt. He didn't lecture. He simply listened. Sometimes being heard is the first step toward becoming better. Harold quietly apologized, not only for calling the police, but for allowing prejudice to shape the way he viewed people for decades. Marcus accepted the apology without hesitation. Forgiveness did not erase what happened, but it allowed both men to move forward instead of remaining prisoners of one painful afternoon. Marcus invited Harold back to the reception. The older man hesitated. He believed no one would welcome him. Marcus simply smiled. He said every community becomes stronger when someone chooses to change. Slowly, they walked back together. Conversation stopped as guests noticed them approaching. Nobody knew what to expect. Harold stood before nearly 200 strangers and admitted his mistake. His voice trembled. His eyes filled with tears. He apologized to Marcus. He apologized to Emily. He apologized to every family that had come simply to celebrate love. For several quiet seconds, no one moved. Then Emily stepped forward first. She hugged him. That single act broke every remaining wall in the crowd. Others followed with smiles instead of judgment. Children returned to playing. Music filled the evening once more. The wedding became memorable for reasons no one had planned. Not because police arrived, but because compassion stayed. Months later, something unexpected happened. Harold began volunteering at the same community reading program where Marcus and Emily had first met. He spent every Saturday reading books to children from every background imaginable. The man who once assumed strangers were threats slowly became someone children looked forward to seeing each weekend. Transformation rarely happens through humiliation. It grows through unexpected kindness. Years later, guests still spoke about that extraordinary wedding, not because of the interruption, but because they witnessed prejudice lose to grace. They watched dignity answer hatred without surrendering dignity itself. They learned that true leadership isn't measured by a badge, a title, or authority. It's measured by what someone does when they have every right to seek revenge, but instead choose compassion. If this story has touched your heart so far, please leave a comment with one simple word: kindness. We'd love to see how many people still believe kindness can change lives. The wedding album still sits in Marcus and Emily's home today. Among the beautiful photographs is one unexpected picture. It shows a former skeptic standing beside the newly married couple, smiling through tears, surrounded by people he once misunderstood. That photograph became the family's favorite, because it captured something far greater than a wedding. It captured redemption. And before this story ends, if it moved you even a little, please like this video, subscribe to the channel, share it with someone who believes the world can still become a kinder place. And tell us in the comments what lesson stayed with you the most. Your support helps these stories continue reaching hearts across the world. Love won that day, not because the ceremony was perfect, but because imperfect people chose forgiveness over revenge, understanding over assumptions, and hope over hatred. Sometimes the greatest victory isn't proving someone wrong. Sometimes it's giving them the chance to become someone better.